Hi, and thanks for joining me. We're out on Goldie today and we're off down the Lincolnshire Wolds again. We're going to be travelling down through Horncastle. We'll do a loop round Woodhall Spa and Coningsby, then back up via Louth for a nice brew at Willingham Woods. There's quite a mixed bag of interesting bits and places on the way, so sit back and I hope you'll enjoy the ride. I'll pick up the journey at Nettleton. This is a pretty little village sitting right on the edge of the Wolds, and we've actually been here in a previous video. We're going to turn left as we come out the village and head up the steep Mangate Hill to get up on top of the Wolds. It's a glorious day, the sun's out and it is hot. It's just the sort of day you need to be out in the breeze rather than sat about trying to keep cool. We're up on top of the Wolds now and we're turning right onto the B1225 heading down to Horncastle. Doesn't actually show up on the GoPro footage, but we keep getting glimpses through the hedge of a radar dome over to the right. It's an NATS dome. The station's just up a little lane off the main road, so I'll see if I can get a picture. Now, if like me you've never heard of it before, NATS stands for Neutral Autonomic Transport System. Basically, in layman's terms, it's part of the air traffic control system that's used to track all aircraft movements over the country. Radar installations like this are spread about all over, and often you just don't notice they're there. We're crossing the B1203 here, which goes from Market Raisin to Bimbrook. Bimbrook was a former RAF base during the war. This is the A631 we're crossing, which goes from Louth to Market Raisin, and we'll actually be coming down the 631 on our return leg on our way to Willingham Woods. our left here is the site of the former RAF Ludford Magna. This started operations in June 1943 and was operated by Bomber Command. Lancaster bombers flew out of here. It was actually the highest bomber airfield in England at 428 feet above sea level. It was also one of the first airfields to be equipped with FIDO. The FIDO was an experimental system to clear fog and illuminate the runways, and it used a network of petrol burners along the sides of the runways. During the war period, 113 Lancaster bombers from here were lost. That was the highest number of losses for any single squadron. During the Cold War period, from the late 50s and early 60s, it was one of the sites used to house the Thor nuclear missiles. There was a potential disaster here in 1960 when a liquid oxygen fuel tank was accidentally allowed to empty onto one of the launch pads. Had it caught fire, it could have ignited the rocket's fuel and ended in the detonation of the warhead. Contamination of an area between 100 and 300 square miles would have been the outcome. Thankfully, that never happened. Now we've got the A157 to cross. This goes from Louth to Lincoln. This huge mast we keep seeing ahead is the Belmont Transmitter. It opened in 1967 and it transmits digital TV and radio. At one point it was 1,272 feet tall and was considered the tallest structure of its kind in the world. But in 2010, as part of the digital switchover, the top section was removed as it wasn't needed, and this shortened it to 1,154 feet. It's certainly impressive, and you can see it for miles and miles around. Just to the right, at the side of that tree, is another Cold War relic. It's an ROC bunker. ROC stands for Royal Observer Corps, and they were actually tasked with reporting nuclear bursts and monitoring fallout. This is the entrance to one of their underground bunkers, which you find all over the country. This is the village of Ramby we're passing by. It's only a very small place with just a handful of houses, but it's got a 12th century church. The gateway we're just passing is the entrance to Ramby Hall. It's a Grade 2 listed country house dating from 1868. The village appears in the Domesday Book, but it's noted as Randaby. We're turning left now onto the A158 to Horncastle. On the right, just up here, we're going to be passing the Edlington Pirate. Now, I believe he's been stood watching the traffic over that hedge since the late 1990s. Many people wave, pip the horns, or even salute him as they pass by. It's quite a landmark. We're just on the northern outskirts of Horncastle now, and we're turning right onto the B1191 for Woodall Spa. This is the village of Thornton. The bridge we're just going over passes over the Spa Trail. This is a walking and cycling trail that goes from Horncastle to Woodall Spa. There's a number of sculptures along the way, and just where this bridge crosses it, we've got a stainless steel Viking longship. We're coming into Woodall Spa now, and as its name suggests, this was an old spa town, but it actually became one really by accident. In 1811, a 1,000-foot deep shaft was sunk in a search for coal seams. It had to be abandoned when an underground spring was hit instead. Some years later, that's around 1834, the then Lord of the Manor had the water analysed. Turned out to be mineral-rich water, so he set to and built a proper well to feed a spa baths. He also built a good-sized hotel to house all the visitors. Unfortunately, the hotel burned down in 1920, but the spa baths didn't close until 1983, when the well finally collapsed. The town's history actually goes back a long way, and there's evidence of occupation on this site right back to Neolithic times. We're turning left at the roundabout, but the park on our left just before it has a memorial to the members of RAF 617 Squadron, otherwise known as the Dam Busters. RAF Woodall Spa was a large World War II airbase just to the south of the town. It opened in 1942 as a satellite airfield for nearby Coningsby, where we're off to later. It was home to several squadrons during the war, but 617 moved here after their famous Dam Busters raid. Prior to that, they'd been at nearby Scampton. They stayed at Woodall Spa until the end of the war. They actually specialised in precision bombing, often using the Grand Slam and Tall Boy bombs. These were referred to as earthquake bombs because they penetrated deep into the ground and then exploded underground, causing seismic shocks. They were another invention of Barnes Wallis of bouncing bomb fame. We've been travelling along the south side of RAF Woodall Spa, and we're now at the village of Tattershall Thorpe. This is where the RAF barracks used to be, and it's now been turned into Thorpe Camp Visitors Centre. It's mainly a museum for the RAF in general and Woodall Spa in particular, and it uses the old World War II buildings to house it. But it does have other exhibits as well. Unfortunately, it only opens on Sundays and bank holidays, and today happens to be Saturday. Anyway, here's a quick view from the outside, but it's well worth a visit. It's also got a great naffy that serves lovely homemade cakes amongst other things. Right, well, as I'm editing this trip, it's become obvious it's going to be too long for a single video, so I'm going to split it into two parts. I'll leave it here with some shots of Thorpe Camp. There's more interesting stuff to come, so I hope you can join me for part 2. Thanks for watching, and cheers for now.